Before we get started with the Sales Integrity Podcast, if you haven't already signed up for our free video email course titled 7 Steps to Master the Game of Complex Technical Selling, then you'll want to do so right away. If you're listening on your phone, then simply text the word SI course to the number 44222 or visit mastercomplexsales.com. Again, text the word SI as in sales integrity, so SI course, which is all one word with no spacing at all, to the number 44222 or visit mastercomplexsales.com. Now, let's get started with the podcast. Hello, sales achievers. Welcome to the Sales Integrity Podcast. I'm Sean Pickett, founder and CEO of Sales Integrity, a sales coaching services provider, and also the founder of MyCoachSite, a coaching enablement software provider. This podcast is all about helping sales professionals, leaders, and organizations with a complex technical B2B sale to increase sales and earn more money, period. Wednesdays are a very special day on the Sales Integrity Podcast because our theme for the day is Wisdom Wednesday. Each Wednesday, I will interview a guest, someone who is a leader in the selling profession who can share their wisdom with all of us through their experience. Some of the guests will be sales-related authors, speakers, trainers, and coaches who serve the sales profession as thought leaders. And some of the guests will be VPs of sales or even sales professionals who are willing to share their sales wisdom with their peers and contemporaries in the marketplace. So get ready to glean some value from today's Wisdom Wednesday interview because it's time to get today's episode rockin' and rollin'. Now let's chat with today's guest, Bob Minshall. Bob, are you ready to share some wisdom with Sales Integrity Nation today?
Absolutely, Sean.
Great. Let's get started. Bob is the GM and COO of MyCoachSite, a coaching enablement software platform. With 30 plus years of experience in the technology solutions industry, Bob has led sales, marketing, services, and delivery organizations from early VC startups to Fortune 500s and everything in between. Bob has a proven track record selling into the IT technology industry, including storage, server, networking, software, services, professional services, and cloud applications markets, focused on scaling growth, revenue, and profit. Bob, say hello and take a moment to add anything pertinent to that intro that may not have been presented that you believe is relevant for the sales achievers out there listening.
How are y'all today? Thank you. No, quite frankly, Sean, it's the first time I've actually had somebody do as good an introduction as that. Gosh, I've been around a long time with a good career, so let's get this thing started, man.
Okay, great. So full disclosure for everyone listening to this call, you probably noticed at the outset of our podcast that one of my roles is the founder of MyCoachSite, and Bob is the GM COO of MyCoachSite. So yes, we work together. I brought Bob in to run that company that is a startup software company as of April 2016. So let's start really with a brief overview of what you do today, Bob, to help your customers as it relates to MyCoachSite. For instance, who's your target market audience? What is your product or service? What primary challenge, issue, goal do you address for your clients? And most importantly, what value does your solution provide? Provide us just a brief glimpse into what you do today so our sales achiever audience gets to know you a bit before you share some wisdom.
Sure, it's great. First to remember is I'm a sales achiever as well, if you want to kind of motion that into there. Regardless what your title is with a startup, with some of the companies you have, you're always selling. So what's a target market? We provide a platform, an enablement platform that allows someone like an author, a speaker, a trainer, a coach, or a company take their content, their value that they present, show, sell, whatever to anyone, and we allow them to be able to transform that into a capability to put that online. And what that really does is the value we add is we take one of those folks, author, speaker, trainer, coach, or a company, and allow them to put their content online to where they can present that anytime, anywhere, to anyone. And so now they can get out of the one-to-one contact in front of to present the message and take it online into the marketplace for numerous contacts at the same point. So it leverages what they do into the virtual arena.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Bob. So as you know, our sales achiever audience that's out there are typically sales professionals with a B2B complex technical sale. They're sales leaders, they're company leaders, and we even have entrepreneurs that have startup tech companies, and they're responsible for everything, right? Rolling up their sleeves and getting out there and selling in the early days. And that would describe what you've been doing as well, right, Bob, in terms of your role? I mean, you have a GM COO title, but as we all know in startups, you're kind of doing everything, and sales is king, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to set the stage so the audience understands your point of view. And as we jump into the interview here and I start asking questions, they understand kind of where you're drawing from in terms of that experience and your overall approach. So I appreciate you setting the table there.
Perfect.
So Bob, let's jump in. At Sales Integrity, we have a mantra. We repeatedly teach the sales professionals we coach that is the starting point for our sales achievement framework selling system, which is this: make your sales pop to achieve your goals. Now, Bob, POP is naturally an acronym and stands for preparation, organization, and productivity. These are the key habits of all top sales achievers we've been fortunate enough to coach. So given that, my next three questions will address these three core competencies to get your take on each one. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, great. First question: how can sales professionals improve the way they prepare for any step in the sales process?
Block time. Think about what you have to do in that sales process. Is it 2 steps? Is it 12 steps? Is it 100 steps? Is it to an individual? Is it to a corporate entity? Block time to prepare for each one of those steps, what you want to accomplish, and how you move that step into the next step. If you plan that, you'll be good. I had an old sales coach one time I worked for, good old boy from Fort Worth, and he said something that sticks. And just remember it. If it ain't on the calendar, Bobby boy, it ain't. Just remember, plan it, put it on the calendar, block the time, and you'll get time to do it.
Great. So planning ahead, prepping, but most importantly, block it off in the calendar. That's one way for sales professionals to improve the way they prepare. That's great advice. So second question: what is the best tip, technique, or tool to help sales professionals get more organized?
Put a plan together, whether it's an account plan and not the big, we've all gone through the Miller-Hyman courses where you sit through 4 hours of presentation, you have 4 notebooks to fill out. Boil it down to what's the plan to get from your first call to where you get an order. Plan it. Work that plan. Execute on it. Same guy. He was a great colloquialism. He said it. Stuck with me for 30 plus years. Plan your work your plan. I use work, execute that plan daily.
That's great. Third question: how can a sales professional improve productivity to get more done in less time?
Every time when you get up in the morning, I try to do it, and sometimes I'm better at it, sometimes I'm not. We're all human, so if you set out that utopian goal, the more you strive for it, the better you can get at it, the more close you're going to get to it. But it should be between the hours of whenever, business hours, 7:30 to 6, or whatever those hours are for you. Focus on the executable items in that plan. And at the end of every day, I do it today, and sometimes I'm really proud of myself. Sometimes I'm not so proud of myself. When I look in the mirror, I ask the question, what did you do to move the plan forward today? The more you can do that every single day, the more successful you're going to be. And more importantly, you're going to improve your productivity just focused on that plan and executing it.
That's great. Now, Bob, you sell, I sell, as do all of our Sales Achiever listeners. They're all in sales. So given that, we all hear objections as salespeople from prospects at some point throughout the selling process. So I would like for you to share one objection that you previously heard from a prospect and describe how you responded to overcome it. Now, you don't have to share who the prospect was, of course, but please do provide some background as to the situation, what the objection was, and most importantly, how you overcame it. Be as specific as possible.
Yeah, no problem. In fact, there's one comes to mind. Thanks for what a great question. One comes to mind 3 months ago. I was transitioning the company from just really B2C coaches into. We do a lot of customizing for coaches, so we're also in the custom software business as well. And I had a guy on the phone, and we had a great relationship, and I knew the question was coming, and it came. And the question was, "Hey, Bob, we're a couple $100 million. You're a startup." I never lied to him, never put it anywhere. You're a startup. Why should we work with you and not go with somebody else? And, great question. When even if you're not a new company or a startup, I've had to ask that question when a company is doing X, and I, as the sales management team, was responsible for trying to get them away from what they did today into what you solve as a solution today. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. So the real issue is, why me versus what I'm doing today or somebody who's bigger? And the answer is very simple. I have more value. If you can add references, whether they're kind of references or good references, you don't have to say names and numbers, industries. Try to tie what I like to call the herd theory. Other people are going this way. You need to do it. I've been in business. This is what I've done. You have to establish that trust on the front end before that question comes up, and then you can answer it very well.
So that ties in very well to make your sales pop, and that mantra. It's all harkens back to preparation. You've prepared for any of those possible objections, especially that one, knowing you're a startup, that you're going to get that occasionally. Hey, we're a big company. You're a startup. Why would big ol' us work with little ol' you? You had prepared your answer, but not just preparing the answer. It sounds like you prepared an answer that made sense, and you had a process for that you call the herd theory. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, it is. And one of the things that I'd like to add into there is the fact that, you can always use personal commitment as long as you're going to keep to it. One of the commitments I made to anybody in any of those cases I've done is physically, we might not be 2, 3, 400 million. However, you as this first piece is going to be a lot more important than a $4.5 million business that I don't have. This piece of business is going to help us become successful. I can't fail to provide you a solution, because as we talk, I'm going to use you to help me get more as a reference. So I can't afford not to do what you need to do exactly like you do it and provide value to where you are today.
That's
very powerful if it's genuine, if it's a commitment, and it truly is what you believe.
That is great. And that's really a confidence-based approach. And I'm always talking about how confidence is one of your biggest assets as a sales professional. Confidence really stems back from preparation, organization, productivity. If you're constantly prepared, you're going to be organized in the way you're communicating to your audience. Therefore, it's going to be a productive use of time. So make your sales pop. That's the process there. And that generates the confidence you need to come back with responses like you just had. And that's a great one. So I appreciate you sharing that with our audience. So now let's shift gears here a bit, Bob. And let's talk social selling, as that seems to be a hot topic these days. The use of social technology such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and others has really taken the selling scene by storm. Given that, have you made sense of social technologies yet for your business, Bob? And what is one tip you have for the use of social technologies, specifically as it relates to those in the complex technical B2B selling niche?
Have we made sense of it? Absolutely. It's a tremendous value. Have we started using it? Absolutely. It's a tremendous value. Will it change and evolve? And what we think might be working today, we'll have to always be aware of it. Correct. LinkedIn has changed the way it does the way they're connecting with people 3 times over the last 2 years, Google 2 years over the last couple of years. So from my perspective, it's just get it, put a plan in place. What am I going to do? When am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? And then be aware to evolve. And the biggest tip on social media I can give anyone out there is it is so easy when you have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and you've got personal stuff and you're used to checking it personally. The biggest thing is focus between business hours on the business social media to help you get to the next step in your plan and execute your plan. We would all like to think, oh yeah, I'm not going to check my Facebook page with all my buddies. You will, however, just cognitively be aware that is your biggest loss of productivity during any day as you're working your social media strategy. The personal social media you can just click on very quickly can detract that focus. Be aware of it, be cognizant of it, and you'll be able to manage it.
That's great. So it sounds like you're saying have a purpose-driven approach. It goes back to your initial advice on planning and being prepared. In social selling and the social technologies, the use of that for lead generation and staying top of mind, creating awareness is really just another tactic in your tool belt. And it's like anything else. You got to create a plan around that and execute that plan and stay focused while you're doing it. Is that right?
That's correct. As you're putting your plan together, always include that element of social media, because you're going to find folks who don't want to pick up the phone. They're going to find folks that don't like to read email. They will look at a 2-minute video for you to present yourself. It might differentiate yourself to present yourself on why they need to pick up the next time you call.
That's great. So Bob, if social selling is all the rage these days, then its chief rival that is equally polarizing is the tactic of cold calling. So let me ask you, Bob.
Amen, brother.
Yeah, so that's right. That's right. So let me. I couldn't get through an interview without having to talk about both those topics. They're so relevant for everyone today, and it seems like there's a camp. It's almost like politics. Let's not get into that here. I don't like to talk politics, but people are on one side or the other, and they're never going to change their mind on it. So I always like to get the viewpoint here because these are such great topics for sales professionals. Social selling being the first one, so I appreciate your take on that. But the next one here, is about cold calling. So first of all, Bob, do you believe cold calling is still an effective method for lead generation in the complex technical B2B selling niche? I'm not talking about receiving cold calls at home when you're eating dinner or people cold calling and knocking on your door in the business to consumer. I'm talking about our target audience, Sales Integrity Nation, are really complex technical B2B sellers. Is cold calling applicable there? And if so, or even if not, how do you define cold calling? Because I think everyone defines it differently. So
I think that's the great point to start is define it, because I think we all think cold calling is a boiler room somewhere. Quite frankly, I started in the business behind a metal desk with a phone, rotary, unfortunately, and I had a list of people that I needed to call to see if I could get an appointment. So now with all the social tools, make use of those social tools. And now, while you might want to be doing a cold call, again, we've used the term, you can't prepare enough to do a cold call by preparing the warm intro to that cold call. Do you have a network? Have you done the research? Do you know what their value that they're looking for? How can you help them reduce money, increase productivity, reduce the risk? What are the values you're going to present? Work that into some level of a media capability that includes at one point in time, hopefully the best avenue to that is networking. You're going to be able to pick up the phone. And the real key on a cold call is not be able to pick up the phone and say, hi, I'm Bob. I want to present, I'm with brand X and I want to set up a meet. You're going to get hung up. Mm-hmm. What you really need to start that call is, I'm following up from, and it's still a cold call. It's the first time you picked up the phone, but it's a different cold call. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And again, I keep kind of beating the same drum, but it goes back to how you prepare, for that. And first, how you define it, right? Getting in the right mindset. We have a mindset Monday episode of the Sales Integrity Podcast where it talks all about just kind of preparing, getting in the right mindset. But cold calling is no different. First, how do you define it? If you're actually just picking up a phone and kind of willy-nilly calling down a list of even if it's the right list of names, C-level, CIO, CIO, CFO, CEO type folks, and you don't really have prepared messaging, you haven't done your research, you haven't figured out a way to figure out where they're out, where they're interacting in the marketplace and going to that, whether it's in social media or at events, trade shows or whatever, and connecting with them and having some sort of warmed up, well-researched touch point, then a cold call is not effective. But picking up the phone, making use of the phone to try and connect with people, or at least as one of the touch points, I don't think that is dead. And I think that's kind of what you're saying is the phone, there's use for the phone, and picking up the phone and making phone calls, but it's just got to be well prepared and part of an overall strategy that you thought through. Is that what you're saying, Bob?
That is correct. It is a medium, much like social media, email, your presentation, your PowerPoint, video, whatever it is, it's a medium to use. Never abuse it. There's a fine line between pest and persistence, but quite frankly, if you prepared it and you've worked it and you know exactly where you need to be, the other side is if you truly are convinced you're going to add a value to this individual on the other end of the line, you're doing him a favor. You're doing them a favor by being persistent, because you can help improve them to make money, them to reduce risk, or improve their efficiency. And that's what they're looking for, whether they want to admit it on the first time you talk to them or not.
Yep. That's great. All right, Bob, we are nearing the end of our time together today. So that means one thing. It's time for the sales cycle. Now, the sales cycle is not only a process that all sales professionals have to manage, but it's also the name of our lightning round, where I ask questions in rapid fire format and look for quick answers from our guests. To make this fun, I'm going to time this sales cycle round of questions to see how fast we can get through the sales cycle. And then each future guest will see if they can achieve the top spot for getting through the sales cycle in the least amount of time. And that's obviously something all sales professionals would like to achieve, a shorter sales cycle. So I thought I'd just have a nice fun spin on this ending segment of this podcast. So given that, Bob Minshall, are you ready to start the sales cycle?
Let's rock and roll, Sean.
All right, great. Now, before we start the timer, let me set the stage. I'm going to ask you 7 questions. So those are the stages of this sales cycle, those 7 questions. These questions have to do with the topics of lead generation, the sales process, and closing sales. Try to answer them concisely, as time is of the essence, of course. However, you might not want to provide just one word or one sentence answers. A little bit more detail than that will be necessary, because if I feel the answer is too short and our audience is not going to receive any value from it just yet, I reserve the right to kind of ask you to elaborate a bit so we can kind of glean some value nuggets that they can go apply in the real world of selling for what they're doing. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Let's get started with the sales cycle. You are now on the clock. Question number 1. Name a specific technology tool you use for identifying and researching target market prospects.
Sales Navigator within LinkedIn. Sales Navigator not only provides the profile from LinkedIn, you can research the company. It gives you one place, one time. If you have a target market from a larger company, it will drill down into however many of their people are on LinkedIn. You can pick the right one with the message. You can prepare for that cold call, that first entry. It also allows you an opportunity to drip feed, as we talked about, that content to stay in contact with them.
Great. Question number 2. What is the best way to initially get the attention of and connect with your target market prospects for the first time?
Networking. Top of the line, networking. It's always, remember when I said cold calling, you can say, I'm following up from, what a better way to do it than so-and-so referenced me to you and I'd like, boom. It's networking, hands down.
Great. Question number 3. What method do you use to consistently stay top of mind if your prospects aren't ready to buy just yet?
Value content. You either have their email or you have a LinkedIn address. You can always send content to, you can actually put them in under Sales Nav. You can create a group. You can put those people that you've reached out to but haven't quite decided to call you to improve their life and their business. You can put them into a group and send content. It goes out to a lot of people, but they're going to see, you know, your business, you know what you're talking about, and can actually keep you top of mind as they maybe go through a process that they don't need you today, but they might need you tomorrow, maybe not in that company, but in somewhere else.
Great. We're at the midway point of the sales cycle. Question number 4. What sales process or methodology do you employ to manage opportunities through the sales pipeline?
We as sales rep, you know, a lot of time, hey, paperwork. But I got to tell you, forget the paperwork, do a CRM. I don't care if it's Salesforce, Pipeliner, keep it simple. You're going to be able to track who you talk to, when you talk to them, what the response was, what's your next step. You're going to be able to proactively load that, proactively get to it. And the key thing is you're going to have an up-to-minute date pipeline opportunity. It's going to identify where you are in that sales cycle to help you focus on where you go from that point in time on for next steps to get it closed.
Great. Final 3 questions. Question number 5. How do you define the concept of closing a sale? Or better yet, how do you define closing in general?
One of my old sales managers, not the one, but another one, he basically said, I said, well, I sold this, and he said, where's the paper? And so at that point in time, it really comes down to, you can define any kind of concept it is. A closed sale is what we used to call, before you had Echo Sign or online, 3 copies, press hard. Take 2 copies home with you. You've just put the concept of a close.
So getting ink. I love it. Question number 6. How do you know when it's time to close a sale for any given deal?
2 words: trial close. It is a time-tested capability. It's a time-tested strategy. But let me give you an example. Gee, Mr. Customer, we've talked about the value. We've agreed over time that we can add a tremendous value of A, B, C, D, D, whatever you've decided. Let me ask you one final question. Is there any bump in the road here that would keep us from implementing this solution in your company? Great. Sit back, shut up, let him talk.
I love it. Love it. Great. Final question of the sales cycle. Question number 7. What is your best advice for sales achievers to improve their closing ratio?
Use the trial close.
Great. Bob Minshall, you have successfully gone through the sales cycle and closed the deal. Congratulations. The time, you're the benchmark, as I had mentioned. So everyone's going to try and beat this time, but the time was 4 minutes and 43 seconds. 4 minutes and 43 seconds. So that's the time to beat. It's set by Bob Minshall, and future episodes will let you know if anyone ever beats it. But so far, you're the benchmark.
All right. Good. Always love being the benchmark.
Great. So, Bob, let's wrap up the show with how people can best connect with you, your number 1 piece of advice for complex technical B2B sellers, and finally, with how you define sales integrity. So, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, you can go to the website, www.mycoachsite.com. Send me a contact. My office phone is right there. Or you can get to my email address, bob.minshall@mycoachsite.com. And go to the website and call me direct, and I'll pick up, leave a message, or I'll call you back. Really sit down to talk about what's the best piece of advice. Be yourself. Don't try to be anything else. Every time you talk to a customer, even if it's to invite him to lunch, add value. Even if it's just a follow up. I mean, how many times can you send an email or pick up the phone? Hey, I just wanted to reach out. Hey, I just wanted to follow. No, add a value so that every time he picks up that phone, It's going to mean something to him. It means something to you. And remember that plan. It's moving that plan forward every opportunity you get to be sitting in front of him, or he can hear your voice.
And then finally, how do you define sales integrity, or what it means to have sales integrity?
I think sales integrity means if you can, having been in the business a while, if you can deliver value and you can do it ethically, honestly, you can weather good news, bad companies, bad products. It is the only thing you can carry from job to job is perhaps your experience, your value, maybe some accounts, but the real thing that's going to get you that next order is the integrity that you have serviced your customers and clients from the previous company.
Great. Thank you for your time today, Bob. I really appreciate it, and I know our Sales Achiever audience appreciates it as well.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Anytime.
Great. And thank you to all the sales achievers out there who took the time to listen to today's interview. I appreciate it and look forward to everyone applying some of the sales wisdom ideas that Bob provided during today's interview. In the meantime, sales achievers, go out there in the sales world today and help your customers buy what they want, what they need, and what benefits them. And most importantly, go out there and make it a great day.